Hello, we're going to be trying something new today. I am wanting to read more, and I figured that if I somehow find a way to make it a social event, that I might be able to do it more. And also, I really wanted to practice my narration skills and practice my enunciation with stuff because A, we've been doing a lot of visual novels, and B, I DM like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. You guys know this. And I want to be able to make a spooky scene better. So I wanted to try to read some spooky things to you guys in order to get better at it. But also I just really wanted to get back into reading, and I thought it might be fun to share with you all. So with that said, our first book is going to be Never Whistle at Night. It is edited by Shane Hawk and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr., but it is an anthology. It has multiple authors, so there will be short stories with different authors in each of them. It's an Indigenous Dark Fiction Anthology, so these are Indigenous writers and telling Indigenous stories, and I thought that that was neat. With us going into reading horror, I just want you guys to be aware that there's probably going to be some fucked up content. So make sure to protect yourself in your mind. If anything is ever too much for you, please step away. There are a few of these short stories that I'm actually going to skip, and I mentioned that in the pinned message, but 3 of them are a little too much for stream, content-wise. So I'm skipping those 3. I think I'm going to go back and read them after at some other point, and put those on my YouTube. That way, if anybody does want to hear them, you're more than able to, but I don't want to blindside anybody with some content that is just a lot, if I can avoid it. You know, in longer series, that might not be something that we avoid, just because, it's important to have conversations with difficult topics and read difficult content. And if it's part of a whole thing where that's not going to be a big main focus, then okay, sure. But with these being short stories, I just didn't really feel like it was a good idea to step into that. But the rest of the book we will be reading on stream. So with that said, let me take you guys over to our brand new reading nook. Do you guys like it? Is it cute? There's a cat. I got this an hour ago. Alright. So, let's get into it. The first short story we're going to read is called Kushtuka by Mathilda Zeller. You don't have to love him, just make his baby, Mama said, hanging the fleshy swath of salmon to dry. It might have colored eyes, maybe blue eyes. He'll pay you to keep quiet about it. Mama had always been Machiavellian, but this was next level. Not even the old ladies who gossiped about her would have guessed she'd try to pull something like this. I shuddered and slid my knife up the side of another salmon, severing a long fillet of red flesh and silver scales. The cold, wet flesh reminded me of Hank Ferryman's lips, which he constantly licked while talking to us village girls. His hands were wide and stubby, his cheeks were pocked and ruddy, and his breath smelled like caribou carcass that had been left in the sun for a week. "He's rich," Mama reminded me unnecessarily. "And I'm sure he wouldn't be wanting his wife back in Kansas, knowing he's got a kid up here. The money could really help, you know." "He's probably got kids all over the Kobuk Valley," I muttered. "And I don't want to make anyone's baby. Except maybe Pana's. But even then, that's not happening until after I finish college, which costs money. That we don't have. Which is why this conversation is happening in the first place." I brought down my knife too quickly through the fillet and caught the side of my thumb. Blood blossomed along the cut, and I brought it reflexively to my mouth, the taste of my blood mingling with the fish's. Mama sucked her teeth. "Stupid girl. Go inside and clean that up. You're getting blood everywhere." The cut stung, but it was a way out of this conversation and away from Mama. I jogged back into the house, pressing my jacket sleeve around the cut, which extended from the tip of my thumb down the side of my palm. Not wanting to take the pressure off of it, I kicked the door with my toe. It was Pana, not my Anna, who opened it. My heart fluttered a little, despite having known him my whole life. "What are you doing here?" He grinned that perfect grin, complete with deep-set dimples and one eye tooth missing. "Having tea with your Anna." "Why?" Not that I minded, but he was supposed to be on shift in the mines. "There was an accident down at the mines. Frankie and Alcock, and a couple of the white guys, too. You know, the ones visiting from Kansas." "Which white guys?" "Maybe one was Hank Ferryman. Maybe Mama would leave me alone then." "Jim and Bob. They all survived, but they're in really rough shape. Had to be flown to Fairbanks." "Oh." My heart sank a little. "How did they get hurt?" Pana's face darkened. "Maybe you should come inside." Anna waited on the overstuffed chintz sofa, her dark eyes smiling at me from their nest of deep wrinkles. She was aged, but ageless. I swear she hasn't changed since I was 4 years old. "It was Sedna," Anna said by way of greeting. "She's the mistress of the underworld, and they're mining in her domain." Pana shook his head. The foreman said it was a bear, or maybe some wolves. "A bear, or maybe some wolves?" Anna repeated, cackling. "He didn't even see what happened. He's throwing guesses into the dark." I sat down next to Pana. "Sedna is mythology, Anna." "Sedna is angry," Anna interrupted. "They're coming uninvited and taking what's ours. They don't belong here, in our land, in our beds." She clenched her jaw tight, swallowing hard. "But Sedna is gracious enough to give warning. She only tore their guts out. A wolf or a bear would have stayed to eat the guts. They wouldn't be alive in the hospital right now if it weren't for her grace." I turned to Pana, my own innards tightening. "Their guts were torn out?" Pana nodded. "Torn up across the abdomen. Torn up everywhere, in fact." I raised a skeptical eyebrow. "And they're saying it was wolves?" Pana shifted defensively. "If they weren't saying it was wolves, you know who they'd be accusing." "Us. All of us." I nodded my head. "What did you do to your hand?" Anna said, reaching for me with one hand and smacking Pana's knee with the other. "Pana, why didn't you see she's hurt? Go get the bandages." Pana jumped up to get them. He didn't need to ask where. He knew my house as well as I did. As soon as he was out of this room, Anna leaned towards me. "He wants to marry you, you know." I sighed. "I know." Pana had been saved last year by visiting preacher and was now determined to marry me before I moved in. Common law marriage was what basically everyone else did, but not Pana, no. He wanted to go to a little white chapel and promise God he'd love me first. Your grandfather married me first, Anna reminded me, smiling. I know, I repeated. I'd heard the story a million times, how he'd waited and saved till he could take Grandma and Eddie and her baby from a visiting school teacher all the way out to Fairbanks for a marriage and adoption. He'd wanted to do it properly, he said. She thought it was stupid at the time, but it had grown to be a major point of pride with her. I wasn't sure I saw the point. It was a lot of money, but Pana cared about doing it that way, and I cared about him. Pana returned with the first aid kits and pulled my hand into his lap, gingerly unwrapping it from the sleeve. I'm taking Hank Ferryman's boy hunting this weekend, he said, pouring some iodine onto a bit of gauze. Hank says he wants him toughened up out there on the tundra. I rolled my eyes. Pana and his crew would do no such thing, not if they wanted repeat business. They would take the kid out there, make him feel like a big, tough hunter while doing all the actual work of packing things, unpacking things, and hauling things, and he would have stories to take back to his buddies in Kansas. It was about the kid's ego, and the dad's too. I'm sure he'll shoot the biggest caribou known to man, I said, with razor-sharp teeth. Pana grinned. By the time he gets back to Kansas, it'll have turned into a polar bear. That he killed with his bare hands, added Anna, her face splitting into a wide grin, revealing teeth worn down by years of leather working. Hold on, my cats are fighting. Okay, sorry, I had to get onto them. Where was I? Like this. Her hands made violent strangling motions. Pana and I melted into a fit of giggles, as if we were both 10 instead of nearly 20. Pana finished my hand and I stood reluctantly. Here, with him, with my Anna. This is my heart's home. Outside that door lay wolves and bears and Hank Ferryman and Mama. When I returned to Mama, she was smiling. You have a job this weekend. A job? With Hank Ferryman. He's having a party at his lodge. He needs hired help. You know, cooking, cleaning. A curdled feeling gathered around my ears. Why don't you go and work for him? It was a stupid question that we both knew the answer to. Mama rolled her eyes. I already told him you'd go. You're going. No. No? Mama's hand tightened on the knife she was holding. I did my best not to look down at it. My heart trilled like it was trying to beat for 3 people. I don't want to. To my surprise, Mama's grip loosened on the knife and she shrugged. Maybe I'll send Esther then. My mouth went dry. Esther was my 15-year-old sister. My sweet, compliant sister. Mama wouldn't. She couldn't. As I stared at her, though, I knew she would. I'll go. I picked up my ulu and rocked it across the salmon, chopping its head. It's what I thought, Mama replied. Some days, I hate her. Land of the midnight sun, bellowed Hank Ferryman, punching my shoulder playfully. More like land of the 6 p.m. bedtime. Was he always this loud, or was the closeness of the truck amplifying his voice? He chortled at his own joke. Tapisa. Hey, Tappy. I cringed at the improvised nickname. Tell me a native story. I shook my head. That's a bad idea. The sun had set an hour ago, and we were bumping over the half-frozen ground in the dark, with nothing but the truck's headlights standing between us and the darkness. Snow had begun to fall, thick and fast. Alone with someone like him in the darkness like this Seemed like the worst possible place to bring up the stories that could catch the attention of a spirit. It's a swell idea. Hank Ferryman doesn't make bad ideas. Don't forget I hired you for the evening. The last sentence fell like lead between us. He hired me to cook and clean for his party, not tell him stories. I wasn't hired to do whatever he felt like doing. My hands curled into fists. Still, maybe it would shut him up. Fine. Fine. I racked my brain, but in the darkness, I could think of nothing bright and benign. There was once a girl named Sedna. Her father threw her over the edge of his fishing boat. She tried to save herself by catching on the edge of the boat, but he brought a knife down to her fingers and cut them all off. They became the first seals, walruses, and whales. She became the goddess of the underworld. Hank waved his hand impatiently. I already know about Sedna. I got your buddy Pana telling me about her. Tell me something new. I pulled my coat tighter around me. There are Kushtuka. They appear to us, taking on the appearances of those we love. They try to get us to go with them. To go with them where? I pulled my coat even tighter, suddenly feeling cold. I don't know. Hank was quiet for a blessed minute. Then he let out a guttural snort that blossomed into full-blown laughter. You call that a ghost story, Missy? Your ghost stories are as bad as your watermelons up here. We don't have watermelons up here. Damn straight you don't. I can tell you some ghost stories from Kansas that put hair on your chest. In fact... My head slammed into the dashboard as Hank floored the brake, sending us into a fishtail. When the car finally stopped, he sat, his chest heaving as he stared out the road ahead of us. A figure stood before us in the headlights, cloaked in heavy furs. Black hair tumbled down in the wild rivulets around her elbows. She pushed back the ruff of her parka. She was me. Or would have been, were it not for the pupils that covered her whole eyes, and the hideous, obscenely wide grin that distorted the lower half of her face. Hank let out a small scream and floored the gas, ramming straight into her. A thunder roll of sickening thuds juddered through me as she tumbled up and over the hood of the truck. I looked behind us and saw nothing but the taillights as Hank continued to pick up speed, his breathing ragged and shallow. He muttered to himself thickly for a moment before looking over at me with a nervous little laugh. Some deer you got out here, huh? I stared. That wasn't a deer. Don't be stupid, Hank scoffed. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. You saw it with yours. It was a deer, plain as the nose on my face. A gentle tapping noise sounded on the glass behind me. I shuddered, unable to turn around. I think there's something in the bed of the truck. Hank's hands tightened on the steering wheel. No, there isn't. Tap. 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 Don't you hear that? I felt those eyes on the back of my head. Those eyes, all sea-black pupil, wide and hungry. All I hear is you trying to amp me up. Wasn't enough to tell me your ghost stories. You want to spook me now? Tap. 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 His body stiffened at the noise. Stop it. Tavisa, it's not funny at all. It's not me. Surely he could see both my hands, silent in my lap. He huffed impatiently, but didn't say anything else. The tapping stopped. He relaxed, laughed a little. You really had me going for a minute there. I didn't reply. There was no point. By the time we reached his lodge, an oversized monstrosity on the edge of the lake, he was back to cracking bad jokes and resting his hand on my knee, removing it when I batted him off, only to drop it there again a second later. You'll love this place. I can't believe I haven't taken you out here yet. I had everything flown in from Anchorage. It's all custom. Top of the line. He was grinning like a kid. I hated his familiarity, as if I were a friend who hadn't gotten around to visiting, instead of a village girl whose mother he'd leveraged to drag me out here. He slipped out of his side of the truck, swinging his keys and whistling. I sat on the passenger side, my dread growing in the stillness. Tap, tap, tap. I turned this time and saw her. She was me, this Kushtuka, with inky black eyes and black hair, billowing and wild. When our eyes met, her face split again into that freakishly wide grin that nearly reached her eyes or her ears, and revealed pointed molars. Meat-eating molars. Flesh-ripping molars. Hank's voice registered from somewhere in the front of the truck. "Aren't you coming to Pisa?" I opened my mouth and closed it again, unable to bring myself to make a sound. The Kushtuka tapped on the back of the window of the truck once more with a long black fingernail and disappeared. I tore my eyes from the back window to see him trundling over to my door. "You're one of these fussy old-fashioned girls, aren't you? You want a big, strong man to open the door for you, is that it?" He chuckled to himself and opened my door. I climbed out, scared to take my eyes off the truck bed, as if doing so would make the Kushtuka materialize again and leap on us, ripping at us with those pointed teeth. The lodge was massive, with vaulted ceilings and mounted animal heads everywhere. Above the fireplace hung 2 spears, crossed over each other like they were European swords or something. But they weren't European, they were Inuit. I recognized the carvings on them, the worn leather bindings and the secured at the pointed stone ends. Those spears. Artifacts. They're incredible, aren't they? Genuine ancient artifacts, you know. They're my grandfather's. Hank Ferryman's smile stayed frozen on his face. After a pregnant pause, he laughed. "You're mistaken. There are so many spears out there like these." I recognized the carving. "They're nothing. Indigenous motifs that have been carved 1,000 times over." The back of my neck felt tight, beyond cringing. "If they're not his, where did he get them?" Hank shrugged, as if I'd asked a stupid question. "My secretary found them for me." "Found them?" "Stole them, more likely. From my widowed Anna." "Found them, bought them, it doesn't matter. You're here to work. There's the kitchen." He pointed to a corner of the lodge sectioned off by granite countertops. "My secretary was here earlier. They've dropped off recipes and groceries for tonight's dinner." I stalked over to the kitchen and grabbed the ulu that was sitting on the wooden holder of the counter. Hank bounded over and snatched it from my hands. "That's an artifact. It's for decoration." I looked down at the ulu in his hands. It was newly sharpened. The baleen handle was worn, polished to a bright shine from all the times it had been gripped. I wondered whose Anna he stole this from. "It's a tool. For cutting." Hank rolled his eyes. "You're basically white. Your dad stabbed was white, your mother's white. You should be able to understand that modern knives are better." He pointed to the block of the knives on the counter. "Carbon steel. Flown in from Japan. Top of the line. Try them, honey. I promise you'll never go back to an ulu." If he saw I was shaking with rage, he didn't show it. I strode to the knife block and drew out the largest one, grabbing a cutting board and a bag of potatoes before I could give in to my urge to run him through with it. "See now, isn't that fabulous?" Hank Ferryman pumped a fist as if he had just taught me to fish and I'd caught one. He didn't wait for a reply before continuing. "I gotta take a piss. Make sure the champagne's in the fridge, will you? No one likes it warm." I made dinner. Other men showed up and ate, made passes at me, laughed and talked to Hank. I passed the hours in a deep fuzzy rage, forcing myself through the motions of arranging canapes on a plate, pulling a roast from the oven, slicing it up on a serving tray. I couldn't bring myself to fake smile at them. There was something outside the house that was clearly murderous and looked just like me. There was something inside me that was clearly murderous and felt nothing like me. Someone popped the cork of the champagne bottle and I jumped, letting out a small scream. The room exploded with laughter and Hank grinned at me, pushing a champagne glass over the counter toward me. "You clearly need to loosen up." I pushed it back toward him and left for the bathroom. I needed to be anywhere away from these people. I locked the bathroom door and pulled myself onto the counter, leaning my head against the back of the mirror. It was colder here, a welcome relief from the heat in the main area. I breathed deep, sizing up my options, wondering if I could get the police to look into how Hank got my grandfather's spears, if they would actually care at all. Probably not. A heavy dragging sound slid along the hall outside the bathroom. I looked down, watching a shadow pass along the crack under the door. The air filled with the thick smell of old fish. The shadow paused. I pressed my lips together, hardly daring to breathe. After an eternity, the shadow continued on past the bathroom door and down the hall. I slipped off the counter and stood in front of the door. The murmur of laughter and conversation went silent. Hank Ferryman's voice broke the silence. "Tepeza! I told you to leave those artifacts alone!" His voice should have sounded plaintive, but it didn't. It trembled. A scream tore through the air, followed by a trampling of feet, breaking glasses. More screams. I sat on the counter, my mouth growing dry. Someone was running up the hall toward me. The handle to the bathroom door rattled, followed by the pounding that made the whole door vibrate. "Let me in!" Thud. The heavy crack of a skull on the floor preceded a wet, tearing sound. Something dark seeped under the bathroom door, and it wasn't until the smell hit me that I fully registered what it was. Blood. Primal growls turned into satisfied chewing and smacking noises. I pressed my back against the bathroom mirror, drawing my knees to my chest. My heart thudded in my ears and my breathing sounded too loud. It, the Kushtuka, would hear me. It, that creature, would find me. My blood would join with the blood on the floor. After what felt like an eternity, a rustling of furs and padding of feet told me it was leaving. I heard the front door banging open, the sound of feet on gravel walking away. I couldn't stay here. It could come back. It would come back. I needed to get home to my Anna and her shotgun. Would a shotgun work against a Kushtuka? Surely it would. If it weren't flesh and blood itself, it wouldn't be able to do whatever it just did. I dropped to the floor as silently as I could, holding my breath while I turned the doorknob. I had seen a lot of blood in my life. I'd gutted fish and caribou, slaughtered ducks and sliced up eels. But that was orderly, deliberate, purposeful. This was not that. Bloody footprints covered the floor. Blood spatters and smears graced the walls. There weren't men here. There were pieces of men. Entrails of men. I took a step forward and my foot grazed something wet. I looked down. It was an eye. Bloodshot across the sclera. It rolled, revealing a blue iris, as blue as Hank's. I fell into a squat, hugging my knees, pressing my toes down to stop myself from falling into the mess. I didn't want to touch the ground. I didn't want to touch anything. I pressed my shoulders between my knees and vomited. Outside, Hank's sled dog started barking, working up into a panic. I looked around. I had to get out of here. Hank's keys had been in his pocket, but now I could barely bring myself to cast my eyes around the room again. This was a search I couldn't undertake. The dogs. The dogs could take me home, and away from that thing, whatever it was. I grabbed my grandfather's spear off the wall, the ulu of the counter, and stepped lightly onto the gravel. Hold on. One sec. Okay. Sorry about that. New snow was starting to fall, dusting the gravel and recoating the already fallen snow in the yard. I pressed my back to log the exterior and sidestepped toward the barn where the huskies were. Their barking had died down, and now they were all panting and whimpering anxiously. I stepped into the shadowy barn, straining my eyes against the darkness. If she was in here, they'd know, wouldn't they? If she was still there, they'd still be barking. But they weren't. They were just whimpering and staring at me. Still, my scalp prickled. She'd be coming back. Something deep inside me knew it. I grabbed their harness and began hooking them up as quickly as I could, praying that the snow was deep enough that the dogs would know where to go, that I wouldn't fall off. I'd driven a sled a few times before, but I wasn't good at it, not by a long shot. Something shuffled in the dark. The dog's whining intensified. My hand shook as they buckled the last clasp, and I jumped onto the runners. Something shuffled again, and the rancid fish smell filled the air. She was here. Go! I hissed at the dogs. Mush! The dogs whimpered, looking around anxiously. I tried to whistle at them, but my mouth was too dry. Something bit into my arm, sharp and cold. I screamed, and the dogs took off like a shot. I snatched the handle with one hand and slapped the Kushtuka with the other. Her nails dug into my flesh, and searing cold shot through me. I raised the arm she was gripping and bit down hard on her hand. A scream echoed across the tundra as she fell back, and we gained speed. I looked over my shoulder and saw her in the moonlight, a dark, spidery figure loping toward us across the white snow. I shook the reins, urging the dogs to go faster. The sound of her awkward lope and heavy breathing grew louder. We swerved through scrub brush. She bounded over it. She was gaining on us. Blam! A shot rang out across the hills. Blam! It was a shotgun. Who on earth was shooting their gun at this time of night? Blam! I prayed the bullet would miss us, that it would find my Kushtuka. Blam! We had come to the river, and the dogs swerved to the parallel... blah, 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 blah. The dogs swerved to run parallel to it. The Kushtuka cut the corner, closing the distance between us. I could feel her breath on the back of my head, smell the blood and fetid flesh. Blam! The smell subsided. I looked back behind me, and she was on the ground, inert. The dogs slowed to a walk, and my knees buckled with relief. Blam! Why were they still shooting? The Kushtuka was dead. Someone grabbed me, throwing a hand over my mouth and another around my wrist, tackling me to the ground. Don't say a word. It was Pana. Buck, Hank's boy, has absolutely lost his mind. I nodded. We crawled behind a rock and sat stock still, muffling our breathing with our coat sleeves. Footsteps grated across the stones on the riverbank. I've got 1, 2, 3. 3 little Indians, all for me, Buck sang. I ignored Pana's whispered protest and peeked around the boulder to see if Hank Ferryman's son's nudge at the inert Kushtuka was with the barrel of his rifle. You're an ugly one, aren't you? He muttered. The Kushtuka shifted. Buck nudged the Kushtuka with the butt of his rifle. Are you dead, or do I need to blast you again? He spoke as if he were offering a complimentary turn-down service at a fancy hotel rather than threatening mortal violence. The Kushtuka made a quiet whimpering sound. Or better, perhaps, with my own bare hands. He dropped to his knees and put his hands around the Kushtuka's throat. It made a strangled sound, writhing with his tightening grip. A knot twisted in my stomach. I should have been relieved to see the Kushtuka go, but in that moment she looked at me. She looked like me. Somehow, she was me. Buck squeezed harder and she kicked and flailed, her foot connecting with the butt of the gun, sending it skittering towards me across the snow. Ignoring Pana's protest, I lunged forward, grabbing it and bringing it level, jamming the butt into my shoulder. Stop! My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded desperate, primeval, superhuman. My finger went into the trigger. My voice trembled when I spoke. You're killing her. Stop! I fired a warning above his head, and he froze, then slowly stood, hands above his head, turned to fix me with a grin as ugly and unsettling as the Kushtukas. Those devil natives thought they could abandon me, he said, through his manic grin. They're wrong. They're all wrong. I showed them. Pana stood up now, turning a flashlight on Buck. His blonde hair and pale face, his expensive thermal coat and snow pants, they were all splattered with blood. My finger went back to the trigger. He wouldn't be missed. His father was already dead. If he lived, he'd kill and kill again. He'd kill my people. He'd kill Pana. I leveled the gun at him and took aim. Warm, gentle hands covered my hands. I heard Pana's voice in my ear. Please don't. He isn't worth what we'll pay for this. The tightness welling up in my chest broke into a sob. I lowered the gun. This is it. How we all ended. Defeated by their brutality in a world that would choose them and forget about us. Buck screamed. There was a spear in him. The Kushtuka on the ground held the spear, grinning widely. I was on the ground holding the spear. I was holding it with my own hands as Buck's blood trickled down and warmed them. I let it go, scrambling to my feet as he fell. There were bruises around my neck. My throat hurt when I breathed. Where was the Kushtuka? Where was Pana? Buck fell onto his back, the spear sticking straight up out of him. Pana lowered the rifle, tears streaming down his face. I thought he was going to kill you. The Kushtuka! Buck went on a rampage. Both elders who came hunting with us are dead. There was a Kushtuka. The Kushtuka killed him. She was right here. She looked just like me. Pana opened his mouth to protest, then looked down at Buck. He took a deep breath. You know what, Tapisa? I think you were right. I think there was a Kushtuka. I pulled my hands into the thick furs I'm wearing. They were beautifully made. The trim was black with little red flowers and green leaves trailing along the edge. They were handmade, artifacts even. I thought I saw that hanging in Hank Ferryman's lodge, Pana said. It looks just like the one my aunt made once. I walked to the sled, my legs shaking. Let's take it back to her then, okay? Pana nodded, tossing one last glance over his shoulder at Buck. His freshly dead body smelled good, so good, as I was sure the wolves would find him soon. I swallowed the saliva gathering in my mouth. Come on, Pana. I think I have your aunt's ulu on that dog sled. She'll be wanting it back. Pana paused, then nodded, taking my arm. Thanks, Tapisa. I smiled. You, my dear, are most certainly welcome. That's the end of the first short story. What did we think? Did we like it? I liked it. Let me see if this next one is one of the ones that we're skipping or not. Okay, no. Let me see how long it is. Let me get a couple minutes to reset my voice and drink some water. Hope everybody's doing okay in chat. Hope we're all chilling. Okay. Let me see just how long this next one is. Okay. Yeah, let's read another. This one is called White Hills by Rebecca Roanhorse. White Hills is everything Marissa ever wanted, right down to the welcome sign by the community mail drop, reminding everyone of the HOA rules. Some people don't like HOAs, but Marissa loves them. They keep the houses looking nice and the people uniform, and isn't that one of the reasons she and Andrew chose to move here? Well, that and its proximity to her in-laws. And of course, the private golf course that Andrew spends most weekends on, and the no children allowed pool where she promised to meet her new friend Candy for drinks. Only Candy never texted her back, even though she sent a dozen "Hey girl" texts with funny emojis, and even one pretty serious "Are you okay?" Marissa pushes the uncomfortable thought of Candy's ghosting out of her mind and focuses on the positives as she pulls her BMW through the gate, tossing a wave at the security guard, admiring the way the afternoon sun catches on her new wedding ring, and then turning it away as if he doesn't matter. But of course, it matters. What good are her accomplishments if there's no one there to bear witness? Marissa has many accomplishments. Her body, for one, tucked and toned and filled to perfection by the best professional surgeons, trainers, and estheticians Houston has to offer. Hair bleached to a stunning shade of summer. Hours spent on her social media accounts as a budding beauty influencer. Some people think marrying well is not an accomplishment, but they never grew up poor outside... Oh, goodness, how do I pronounce this? Chillicothe? Texas? Never slept 4 siblings to a queen size in an old 2-bedroom house owned by their meemaw. Never had to wear hand-me-downs to class or the same stupid pink blouse 3 years in a row for school pictures. The memories fluster Marissa, and she adjusts her Gucci sunglasses as she clamps down on any emotion that might dare to ruin her perfect eyeliner. She tosses an expertly bleached lock of hair over her shoulder and gives the bimmers some gas. It's the baby, she thinks. Pregnancy makes women emotional, and all the baby IG influencers say so. She presses a freshly manicured hand to her newly bumping belly and smiles. She hasn't told Andrew yet. He's a good man, a really good man. But he's at a crucial crossroads in his career, and it's important that the company see that he's CEO material. Part of that is willingness to travel and work weekends and, well, live and breathe the company. There's just no room for a child. She understands. But some men don't think they want a baby until they see that little wrinkled face and those teeny feet, and they smell that distinct newborn smell, and then it all comes together. Andrew will come together. Marissa's sure of it. As long as it's a boy. She read that most women have boys first anyways. It's nature's way of ensuring the man will stick around. She likes that nature has her own mind about things. She pulls into their circular driveway, and now, looking up at their home, tears do come. 4 bedrooms and 3.5 baths at almost 5,000 square feet. European white oak floors, Gaggenau appliances in the kitchen, separate his and hers walk-in closets. Marissa was wrong when she said White Hills was all she ever wanted. It was more. It is the dream. All 4,914 square feet of their house is silent when Marissa walks in. Her bright pink metal-lobed Lennox tapping across the marble entry. The model furniture, even the fancy appliance she loves. It is all pristine as the day as they moved in. Mostly because Andrew is always working and Marissa doesn't make much of an impression on anything, even a house. But that'll change when the baby comes. She can almost hear the toddler giggles, the pit-pat of tiny shoes, the harried voice of the nanny. Soon, baby, she thinks, and touches her hand to her belly. Wonders how to best work her angles for Instagram once she starts to show. Her iPhone dings with a text. She eagerly digs through her Birkin and pulls out her phone. It's from Andrew. Meeting some fellas to watch the game at the club. Be home late. Don't wait up. Marissa's heart flutters and her stomach drops. She had planned to tell Andrew about the baby tonight. Was counting on it. But now she's staring down another night alone. One she can't even mitigate with a bottle of Chardonnay. the baby after all. Unless... Marisha squares her shoulders. This is an opportunity, not a setback, and if there's anything life has taught Marissa is that when God closes a door, he opens a window. She turns on her toe and marches right back to the car. She doesn't bother to wave at the guard on her way out. It's much more important to be seen arriving than leaving anyways. And heads to the club. She's mostly sure that Andrew loves surprises. Dark mahogany and cigar smoke greet her as she makes her way from the tasteful lobby to one of 4 bars at the White Hills Country Club. The 6-figure membership fee was a housewarming gift from her in-laws. Her favorite part of the club is the upstairs patio bar modeled into a modeled in a Mediterranean style. The place where she met her new friend Candy just last week. Candy was 4 hours into an afternoon of day drinking when the 2 women exchanged lipstick compliments over the bathroom vanity. Candy asked Marissa to join her, and Marissa would have never said yes, except Andrew was off taking to the golf pro, and it had been 2 hours of Marissa sitting in an overstuffed chair waiting, her thighs sticking to the leather below her Lacoste skirt. So, when Candy slurred an invitation, Marissa accepted. Candy was tall and thin, and although her roots were dark, she had that California girl aura about her. Or was it Florida? That's it, she thinks to herself. Candy's gone back to Florida. Only they don't have self-service, or don't they have self-service in Florida? Again, a bad feeling threatens, and Marissa quickly buries it. She skips past the stairs that lead to boozed-out Tuscan fantasies and almost best friends. She follows the sound of football instead. Marissa hesitates just inside the sports bar, momentarily blinded by the darkness. Small, flat screens cast illumination against the walls, and she's flustered by what the limited light reveals. Heads. Mounted on the wall are heads. Deer, elk, even a water buffalo. And is that a wildebeest? Marissa thought those existed only in Disney movies. Ball on the Washington 20-yard line, and it's fourth and inches. The Texans are going for it. The words of the TV sports announcer barely register, but the grunts of a dozen or so men into their high-end lagers and low balls of liquor are the sounds of disappointment. She recognizes Andrew's voice among them, a half shout at the quarterback to do something, and beelines to the bar stool where her husband sits, drink in hand. She touches his shoulder, and the smile he started with sours around the edges. What a surprise! And did you get my voicemail? Slur from his lips. He doesn't say, what are you doing here? But Marissa feels her violation, his contained outrage. She drops her hand, steps back from his unhappiness. She almost has second thoughts, but Marissa believes in maintaining a girl boss attitude, which doesn't allow for second guessing. She lifts her chin and confirms that yes, she got his message to stay home and not wait up, but can a wife miss her husband? And besides, she has some news. Another groan from the crowd as their chosen football team blows it, and the guy next to Andrew, a heavier gray-haired business suit, curses crudely under his breath. Marissa stands just to the side of Andrew's stool, hoping he'll offer her to take his seat. She makes a light comment about being on her feet all day, although she spent most of the day sitting in front of her laptop and in the manicurist's chair. Andrew doesn't bulge? Budge? Andrew doesn't budge, but gray hairs... Oh, I'm sorry. Clack the movie thing. Take 2. Andrew doesn't budge, but gray-haired suit slides over to make room for her. She accepts gratefully, giddy to be welcomed into this masculine domain. Only then does she notice The other women in the room are waitstaff in low-cut blouses. She wonders if the wives of the club know about this place and decides they must. It's all kind of exciting anyway, men being men. Andrew's absorbed in the game again, a hand now absently resting above her knee. Her confidence soars. She loves the weight of his fingers, the press of his wedding ring against her thigh. She's never been into sports, but she finds herself watching the TV anyway. Another lost opportunity by the team, and the man next to her, the one that gave her his seat, jokes, "The team's been trashed since they changed their name. Goddamn social justice warriors ruin everything." Marissa doesn't follow sports, but she knows what he's talking about. She's seen people complaining about the chop on TikTok. Read an article about Indian mascots in Vogue. She raises her voice so that everyone can hear. "It's a declaration. I'm part Native American, and those mascots never bothered me." She realizes her mistake immediately. She doesn't need to look to know that the gray-haired suit is staring at her, disgust curling in his lips. She tries to laugh it off, backing toward the safety of her husband, but Andrew's eyes are wide, mouth hanging open, face red. "I was kidding," she ventures. "I'm not really." "Let's go." Andrew's head, the head rested so nicely on her leg, is now pulling her roughly to her feet and dragging her out of the room. That ode to masculine violence with its animal heads in football games. She trips, her heel catching on some unseen divot in the silk rug. She stumbles, feels the sharp pain in her ankle, and knows she's going to fall. "The baby!" She shouts it, unthinking. Women lose pregnancies like this. Women fall and something breaks inside them, and then there's clotting and blood, and then she catches herself before she hits the floor. All that Pilates has given her a strong core and good reflexes. Everyone's staring now. Andrew most of all. She wants to rewind. This was not the way, not how she wanted to announce it, but there's no going back. Only forward. She straightens, ignoring the pain in her ankle, touches a hand protectively to her midsection. "I don't want to hurt the baby." Later in bed, Andrew simmers. It's a silent kind of rage, and something Marissa can usually fix with a well-timed application of oral sex, but now Andrew spurned her advances, and instead he simmers, until he burst. "Why did you say that?" The words are a plaint, not anger after all, but a soft kind of sadness. "Say what?" She's rubbing La Mer cream on her hands, her legs tucked under Italian sheets. "The part Indian thing. I thought it might help." "Is it true?" Marissa hesitates. She has family stories, old picture of browner-skinned ancestors. In high school, she joined the Native American Club. Before she can answer, her phone dings. A text. It's very late for anyone to text her. Who was it? She sets the phone down, feeling much better than she did moments ago. "Your mother. She texted to congratulate us on the baby. How did she know so fast? Someone at the club must have told her." She thinks of the bartender, the waitress in the low-cut top, gray-haired suit. She expects Andrew to smile back, but he only sighs, heavy and disconsolate. The sound of wind through bare branches. He leans over and kisses her on the forehead. It's a lingering kind of kiss. It almost feels like goodbye. "What's done is done," he says. She doesn't understand what he means, so she chooses to ignore it. "She's coming over tomorrow. We're going to go to brunch, and then a baby specialist she knows." Andrew sighs, his blue eyes immeasurably sad. "I thought you were French." What a strange thing to say, but before she can ask more, Andrew's turned out the lights. Marissa tucks herself down into the sheets and pulls the Fred comforter up to her neck to stop the sudden shivers. Elaine, that's Marissa's mother-in-law, is 30 minutes early. Her knock is crisp and precise, much like the woman herself. Elaine smells of Joy Baccarat, and her Chanel suit is flawless. Pale silver hair gathers at her neck in a chic chignon. It would be crude to say that Elaine looks like $1 million, because surely she looks like $2 million. Marissa isn't ready. hasn't had her decaf latte yet or finished drawing in her eyebrows. Without them, she looks perpetually surprised, the top half of her face somehow missing altogether despite careful contouring around her nose and forehead. So she's wearing sweats, rag and bone cashmere, but Elaine eyes her hoodie like it's from the local mall. She taps her Rolex and reminds Marissa she pulled some strings to get her into the specialist today. The least her daughter-in-law could do is be ready to go. Marissa, Elaine says once they're in Elaine's Tesla and Marissa is suitably draped in Burberry, silk gorget, and linen. Is that an ethnic name? Elaine drives an electric. Not because she supports environmental causes, but because she owns stock in the company and once went on a yacht cruise with one of the Musk cousins. It's quite a concession. She tells people at parties since her family comes from oil money. Hebrew, I think. The Botox smoothing corners of Elaine's mouth turned down. Or Latin? They don't speak again until they arrive at the specialist's office downtown, although Marissa tries to engage her mother-in-law in conversation at least twice. Once about the traffic, and then about Andrew's golf handicap. Both are equally prosaic fails, and by the time they pull off the freeway, Marissa is desperate to get out of the car. The Houston skyscraper is a glass palace, an ode to a time when oil barons ruled this corner of the world. The weather has turned heavy, the promise of rain coming in off the Gulf. On the elevator ride up, Marissa stares at the dwindling skyline. Thinks of the Chillicothe. Thinks of Chillicothe, where the buildings never got higher than 3 stories, and the diner in College Station, where she met Andrew after an Aggies football game. She told him she was a student there and that her parents had died and she was living with an aunt. That last one was true, but she knew there was no way he was going to ask her out if she told the truth. Sometimes lying is bad, but sometimes it's the only way to survive. The nurses are all business smiles as they shuttle Marissa into a posh exam room. She can't fault the pale cream and stone decor in here. It reminds her of the spa in St. Regis. I don't need to have a pelvic exam, do I? She asked the attractive brunette woman with the lips the color of sugar-free cranberry juice. Open wide. The nurse swabs her mouth, says the specialist will be in to see her soon. She sits on the exam table, fully dressed, feet swinging off the end. Most doctors' offices have educational posters on the wall, emergency numbers to call for mental health issues. She even had one doctor, a feminist-minded lady from India, who had a poster of how to do your own vaginal exam. She never went back to that one. Here, there are drawings in frames, captured behind glass. Medical drawings. They look ancient, or at least old, like they belong in a museum, not this swank doctor's office. Marissa hops off the exam table and moves closer. She sees now the drawings are diagrams. Human heads being measured and annotated, their features grossly exaggerated. She can't quite read the cursive words, the unfamiliar numbers. It reminds her of the sports club last night, and her whole body shivers with a deep primal revulsion she doesn't quite understand. Part of her wants to look closer, comprehend what she's seeing, but another part of her wants to get as far away from the drawings as she can. The knob on the door turns. She covers her mouth to keep a scream in. It's Elaine. She's holding a smoothie. She sees Marissa standing there with her hand over her mouth and her eyes wide. She waits for her to shuffle back over to the examination table and sit. She offers the smoothie to Marissa, which Marissa sniffs but doesn't accept. What's in this? Elaine, who is not used to being questioned, raises an eyebrow. Marissa, who is not used to questioning, rushes her words. It's just, I'm allergic to strawberries, all kinds, even the local kind and the organic ones at Whole Foods. And I don't want, I have to be careful what I drink these days. She looks meaningfully down at her belly. Elaine proffers the smoothie again, and this time Marissa takes it. Sips delicately from the metal straw, and that seems to placate Elaine. The drink does taste faintly of strawberries, but she's afraid to counter Elaine. The whole thing. Elaine's smile is brittle. For the baby. Marissa feels the hair on her neck rise. She wishes she hadn't come now. Had begged off with a headache or morning sickness. She sucks on the straw, the only sound of the room, an embarrassingly loud, wet slurping, until the smoothie is mostly gone. Elaine gestures for her to finish it all, so she upends the glass and lets the last bit slush across her lips. She hands the empty glass back, her stomach feeling queasy. She's pretty sure there were strawberries in there, and now she's worried about having a reaction. Last time her throat swelled and hives broke out. She's worried, but at least she's in a doctor's office. At least she thinks she's in a doctor's office. Elaine never actually said, did she? Elaine sets the glass on the table beside her and roams the window. The view is spectacular. The freeway glitters below. I'm not even mad, Elaine says, her gaze fixed onto something in the distance. Perhaps I should be. I mean, you lied to Andrew, to us. But then I admire a bit of gold-digging ingenuity. I'm still not sure how you convinced Andrew to elope. Now she turns, and Marissa feels small under her scrutiny. But part Native American? I'm sorry, we can't abide that. And in a grandchild of mine? Well, do we know how dark the baby might be? How savage they might be? But I'm white! Marissa holds out her pale arm as supporting evidence. Well, we certainly thought so. And there are white people who claim to be Indian all the time. I mean, old family stories, an enterprising relative who married an Indian for land rights. And I hear the Indians themselves say that kinship matters more than blood, and it isn't that quaint. I'm sure that's why they have blood quantum rules and ancestor rolls. Marissa had no idea what blood quantum is. It sounds very technical, like dog breeding. Elaine continues. I hoped it was all a mistake. I truly did, but we checked. Marissa remembers the mouth swab the nurse took. She thinks of the drawings on the wall. People say mutt like a badge of honor, Elaine says. What has the world come to when you can't be proud to be purebred? Marissa feels the first cramp as Elaine trails off. She can't keep the small gasp of pain in, and as the next cramp rolls over her, her breath comes out in a moan. Elaine watches, silent. Oh! Marissa clutches her belly. You're bleeding. Elaine's words are an observation. Her cool blue eyes track the spread of blood across Marissa's white pants. Marissa bends over double, panic starting to clog her brain. Focus, she tells herself. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. Positive thoughts. Manifest the life you want. I'll get someone. And Elaine is gone. The floor is cool when Marissa lies her head down against it, although she can't remember falling. She wonders where the nurse is, where the doctor is, where Elaine is. The smoothie glass sits watching, her sole witness. That, and the heads in the drawings dissected into brain size and nose and eye fold. Another cramp rips through her. She screams, begs, tries to get to her feet, and ends up skidding in the mess of blood and, oh God, the baby. She vomits up bits of strawberry. She thinks this is the worst of it, that this was somehow her fault, that this is all a mistake. She reminds herself that everything happens for a reason, only she can't quite think of the reason for this. Her lies, of course, in her outburst, and maybe she wasn't grateful enough in her gratitude journal. She babbles all this to Andrew as he drives her home from the specialist. She's wearing a borrowed skirt and underwear stuffed with the thick, absorbent pads they give women after they give them birth, but there's not going to be a birth in Marissa's future. She closes her eyes and lets the roll of the freeway distract her. The thing is, she begins to realize, Andrew knew. He knew when he left for work early, knew when Marissa prattled on about brunch with her mother-in-law and stroller shopping, knew because he came to pick her up and had towels covering the passenger seat and didn't even act surprised or say he was sorry. She tries to ask him about it, but all he says is, I told you I didn't want kids. No, you didn't. You just said not now, not... She trails off at his look of pity, the way his lips press together as if she's embarrassing herself. They pass through the gate of White Hill, around their circular driveway. She doesn't notice the guard on duty forgets to read the HOA sign. Andrew helps her through the door, across the European oak floors and into the bathroom. She takes a very long bath that afterwards she won't remember taking. She swallows down the trazodone and she keeps in the medicine cabinet. She curls up in her Italian sheets. "I'm sorry," Andrew says. She turns toward the wall. "Mother will be here in the morning." Marissa wants to scream, "What for?" She never wants to see Elaine again, never wants to be waited and found wanting. And the worst part of it all, the worst part is that she still cares what Elaine thinks, wants to apologize or explain or claim innocence. If she comes over tomorrow, you will have another chance to please her, Marissa thinks, and the shame of the thought burns through her like a lightning fire. Marissa closes her eyes and doesn't answer. Andrew's quiet so long that Marissa rolls over to face him, but he's not standing by the door anymore. He's gone. To the club, or to sleep on the sofa, or maybe even to a business meeting. When she finally sleeps, all of her dreams are of Indians. Elaine arrives early again, but this time Marissa's ready. She won't make that mistake again. She's freshly showered and styled, eyebrows perfect, pantsuit Balenciaga. She's made Earl Grey steamers and egg bites, and she's put them all out on the kitchen island. She recites her mantras under her breath, the ones she's posted this morning on her Instagram stories, and most of all, she smiles like nothing ever happened. But she can't quite unclench her hand from the edge of the kitchen counter. Elaine slithers into the kitchen, once overs the tea and tiny omelets, once overs Marissa. Marissa asks if she slept well, makes some banal comments about her own sleep, slept like a baby almost passes through her lips, but mercifully she stops herself. Elaine watches, knows a performance for her benefit when she sees it, says, "We're not quite done yet, you know." Marissa holds onto her smile with all she has. "There's a matter of your little bit of Indian blood. I would think a finger should do." Marissa doesn't understand. "Well, people say part Native American, but really, dear, what part? Your left side, your right? And how can we get rid of that? But I have compromise." She reaches the island and slides the chef knife from the block, places it between him. "The pinky should do. Cut that off and we'll call it purged." Marissa laughs because who wouldn't laugh in the face of a monster? But the monster doesn't laugh back. "I can take this all away, you know." Marissa feels a tiny moment of triumph. We didn't sign a pre-op. I already started the annulment paperwork. "You bitch!" That comes out of Marissa's mouth before she can stop herself. Elaine sighs in indulgence. "You're upset about the fetus, but honestly, what was that? A month? 2 months? Barely a dream. You're young and fertile. If that's what you want, go have a half-breed baby with someone else, just not here and not with my son. But I'm offering you a way out if that's what you want. But look around you. The house, the car, the clothes on your back, it comes at a cost. You don't simply roll in here with your mixed-race blood and think you deserve all this permanently, do you?" Andrew won't stop me. But I can take him too. Her lips purse. "We both know you were a fling, but clever girl you are, you convinced him to elope, but it won't last. The novelty will wear off, or you'll claim to have a headache one too many times, or open your silly mouth in front of his friends like you did at the club, and he'll want nothing more to do with you." Her smile is tight. "Men must sow their wild oats, but we won't be harvesting, dear. No, you're a passing interest, which I will tolerate for Andrew's sake, as long as you," she points the finger at the blade between them, "know your place. This is a test." Marissa understands now, and sees that her pathetic breakfast and her trending clothing was little more than an amateur's gambit. Here's the master, setting out the knife. Here is when Marissa must decide what she truly wants and what she is willing to do to get to it. "I think we can tear up those annulment papers too. Come to a reasonable alimony agreement when the time comes." Marissa stares at the pink polish on her perfect nails. She spies a chip she hadn't noticed before. Elaine's sneering lips move, form a single word that seals her fate. Chillicothe. Marissa looks up. She slides off her shiny new wedding ring. Her manicured fingers wrap around the knife's handle. Everything for a reason. A door, a window. 100% girl boss. No going back, only forward. She smiles at Elaine, and this time she means it. I want White Hills. Elaine nods. Marissa brings down the knife. That was the end of the second one. I like the writing less in this one, I'll be honest. I feel like it was a bit like beating you over the head with like how badly they wanted you to be like, look at this rich girl. And like I get it, because like, you know, I understand and agree with what the story is trying to say. I just simply don't like the writing as much, if that makes sense. Like literally just the way that things were phrased. But girl, stand up. Why are we cutting off our pinky? Why are we betraying our own people for... No, it wasn't subtle in the slightest. Not even a little. It was very overt, which, like, okay, that's fine, I guess. But I also don't particularly like overt. What are we at? An hour and a half? Let me see. How long is the next one? I think actually we will call it here. We'll do those two. Just because I want to try to not fuck my voice up. But yeah, I hope that everybody enjoyed that. We'll keep reading more of this. I hope everybody liked it. Yeah. Again, this was Never Whistle at Night horror anthology. Yada yada yada. The first one was called something. It was called something. Kushtuka. And then the second one was White Hills. Kushtuka is by Mathilda Zeller. White Hills is by Rebecca Roanhorse. But yeah. Thanks, guys.